Braxton is right now in the hospital fighting for her life because apparently there's been some reports that for everybody to pray for Tamar and her family. And this girl tweeted back, oh, who is she fighting now? You know, and I just, man, it just makes me so upset when people have no compassion, man. Like none. Like, this girl's in the hospital fighting for her life. That's what she's fighting for. And it's real life. This ain't reality TV.
The hospital room was quiet, but the world outside was not. The white sheets, the beeping monitors, the sterile air couldn't silence the storm Tamar Braxton had unleashed with just a few words. For days, Atlanta had been buzzing. Gossip blogs were on fire, and social media timelines were drowning in hashtags. But when Tamar Braxton finally broke her silence from that hospital bed, the city froze. And the words that came out of her mouth were in whispers. They were accusations. And those accusations pointed directly at Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris. Let's start at the beginning. Tamar Braxton, known for her voice, her drama, her messy honesty, had spent the night that turned her life upside down, moving through Atlanta like a flame looking for gasoline. Dinner with Funky Den at Rue's Chris was supposed to be harmless. A birthday meal, a little laughter, a chance to show the world she could still glow even after the battles life had thrown at her. But by the time she slid into V12 Lounge, the night had changed, and waiting in that lounge was Men's Harris. Yes, Men's Harris, the man who lives in silence while the women around him burn. The man who's let rumors carry his name through every corner of reality TV. And on this night, eyewitnesses swear Tamar Braxton and Mendeecees Harris weren't just exchanging pleasantries. They were close to close, leaning in, whispering, brushing hands, vibing like the club had turned into their own private world. But where there's Men's Harris, there's always Yandy Smith. And when Yandy Smith entered the lounge, the whole vibe shifted. People felt it before they saw it. The sharp air, the tense silence, the look starting between Tamar Braxton, Mendeecees Harris, and Yandy Smith. The kind of silence that comes right before an explosion. What happened next has already been rattled in 1,000 different ways. Some say Tamar Braxton laughed too loud, trying to play it cool. Some say Yandy Smith walked up with that calculated calm, the kind of calm that hides fire behind polished smiles. What's clear is this. Tamar Braxton and Yandy Smith clashed. "You got a problem?" Tamar Braxton allegedly snapped, her voice slicing through the music. "Do I?" Yandy Smith shot back, steady, unbothered, but her eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Phones went up. Drinks froze in midair, and Mendeecees Harris. He sat silent like always, letting the storm swirl around him. That's how he survived, by letting women destroy each other while he stays quiet. But Tamar Braxton is not built to stay quiet. She got louder. She threw shade that kept through the crowd. "You think you own him," she allegedly said. And that's when chaos took over. Some swear a drink flew. Some say Tamar Braxton slapped a glass. Others insist Yandy Smith shoved it. Whatever it was, the club erupted. Security swarmed, people screamed, and in that blur of voices, one name started spreading. Cousin Kesha. For fans of love and hip-hop, that name is legend. Cousin Kesha, the same woman who once stormed a reunion stage and attacked Samantha, the mother of Mendeecees Harris's child, while Yandy Smith sat polished and innocent. The same cousin who does the dirty work, while Yandy Smith stays camera ready. So when Tamar Braxton ended that night bloodied and broken, fans didn't hesitate. They connected the dots. Tamar clashed with Yandy Smith, and Cousin Kesha pulled up. Dot by morning. The chaos was no longer just whispers. Tamar Braxton herself posted the unthinkable. "I almost died. I was found in a pool of blood. I fractured my nose. I lost my teeth. I don't even know what happened to me. The internet went wild." Sympathy flooded in at first, but then the question started. How could Tamar Braxton lose her teeth and have no memory? How could she fracture her nose and not know how to fans? It didn't sound like an accident. It sounded like an attack. And now, from her hospital bed, Tamar Braxton confirmed what the streets had been whispering all along. "I didn't just fall," she said, her voice weak but firm. "I was attacked, and I know exactly who was behind it." The room froze. The reporters leaned in, and Tamar Braxton, swollen and bandaged, didn't stutter when she said it. Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris. Let that sink in. Tamar Braxton, lying in a hospital bed accusing Yandy Smith of orchestrating her downfall and dragging Mendeecees Harris into the fire. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was an accusation. She went on. Tamar Braxton described the lounge, the whispers with Mendeecees Harris, the look on Yandy Smith's face when she walked in. She described the chaos, the drinks flying, the shouting, the hands grabbing, and then she dropped the bomb. "I saw her cousin. I saw Kesha. She was there. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them spin it." Kesha pulled up. The internet exploded. Fans who had been whispering about Cousin Kesha suddenly felt vindicated. Tamar Braxton herself was confirming it that the same cousin who once charged onto a reunion stage was now charging into her life, leaving her broken and bloody dot. And Tamar didn't stop there. She dragged men's hairs too. "You sat there," she said. "You let it happen. You didn't protect me. You didn't even try. You let me get dragged, and you stayed silent like you always do. That silence is your weapon. But this time, it almost cost me my life." The words hid like a bomb because Tamar Braxton wasn't just shading. She was exposing, and in one breath, she confirmed. What the blogs, the memes, the tweets had been saying Yandy Smith was pulling strings. Cousin Kesha was doing the dirty work, and Men's Harris was sitting silent in the middle of it all. Meanwhile, Funky Den's name didn't escape her either. Tamar Braxton said she texted him from her hospital bed telling him about her injuries, telling him about her missing teeth. And how did he respond? By laughing, by posting jokes, by making himself a star of a scandal instead of standing by her side. "He called me that lady," Tamar said bitterly. "After everything, he couldn't even say my name. That's not friendship, that's betrayal." And with that, the silence that had been building around this story shattered. Tamar Braxton had spoken. She had exposed, and the name she dropped, Yandy Smith's Harris cousin Kesha, Funky Denova. We're now burning hotter than ever, Dodd. So where does that leave us? Tamar Braxton in a hospital bed claiming she was attacked. Yandy Smith still posting polished family photos saying nothing. Men's hair is still silent, hiding in the shadows. Cousin Kesha nowhere to be found. Her reputation doing the talking and Funky Den still cracking jokes, deflecting, spinning while his so-called friend lay in blood. But the real question is this. Was this just Hammer Braxton being messy? Or was this the night the whispers became proof? Was this the night Yandy Smith's silent strategy finally cracked? Because in Atlanta, silence is never empty. Silence is strategy. Silence is power. And sometimes silence is guilt. And now Tamar Braxton's voice, broken, bloody, but unshaken, has turned that silence into an accusation the whole world can't ignore. The moment Tamar Braxton's hospital bed confession hit the internet, the streets of Atlanta went into overdrive. Blogs had their headlines locked. YouTubers went live before they even brushed their teeth. Twitter hashtags trended globally. And the one thing everyone agreed on, Tamar Braxton wasn't just speaking. She was pointing fingers, and she was pointing them directly at Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris. Did y'all hear that? She said Yandy's name. She said Mendeecees sat there and watched. She said Cousin Kesha was there. That was a chorus across every timeline. And with every with every repost, every remix, every TikTok skit of Tamar clutching the sheets and telling her truth. The pressure on Yandy Smith built higher and higher. Dot. At first, Yandy Smith did what she always does. Silence, family photos on Instagram, polished captions about business and positivity, curated videos of her kids laughing in the park. But this time, the silence wasn't working. Tamar Braxton's words were just specific to raw to bloody. The comments under Yandy's post weren't filled with hard emojis anymore. They were filled with knives. Where's cousin Kesha? Yandy, why was Mendeecees with Tamar at B12? Your silence is an admission of guilt. And no matter how many smiling selfies Yandy Smith uploaded, the internet refused to let it go because the story had shifted. This wasn't just Tamar Braxton being messy. This was Tamar Braxton in a hospital bed, bandaged and bruised, saying the names out loud. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was catching it worse than ever. His silence, once his weapon, was now his downfall. Tamar Braxton's words painted him as a coward, a man who sat by while chaos unfolded, a man who let her bleed and then walked away. Why didn't you protect her? Menace. One fan tweeted, "Even if you weren't involved, you were there. You watched on Instagram Lives." People replayed Tamar Braxton's statement over and over, analyzing every pause, every tear, every emphasis on Mendeecees Harris's name. They compared it to his history, the times he let rumors swirl, the times he let women fight while he hid behind the smoke. And the verdict was unanimous. Tamar had dragged him without mercy. But let's rewind to how the fire really caught Tamar. Didn't just accuse Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris. She added detail. From her hospital bed, she described the look in Yandy's eyes when she walked into that lounge. Cold, calculated, a look that said more than words ever could. Tamar said, "The room froze not because of the music, not because of the drinks, but because of that look. Yandy Smith stared me down like she already knew what was coming," Tamar said. And Mendeecees Harris sat there acting like silence would save him. But silence doesn't save anyone. It only makes you guilty. Those words hit hard because the audience remembered. They remembered the reunion brawl. They remembered cousin Kesha. They remembered how Yandy Smith played innocent while her cousin did the damage. And suddenly, Tamar's hospital bed confession wasn't just a story. It was a pattern. Dot. Then came the funky Danava fallout. Tamar Braxton made sure not to let him slip away untouched. She spoke directly on how she texted him about her missing teeth, about her pain, about the pool of blood, and how did he respond? By turning her tragedy into content, by making jokes, by calling her that lady. "Funky Denva was supposed to be my friend," Tamar said. "But when I needed him, he laughed. He mocked me. He cared more about clicks in my life." The internet turned on him fast. His parody-wanted poster once shared for laughs now looks sinister. Fans dug into his past comments, his messy shade, his tendency to deflect, and the conclusion he wasn't defending Tamar. He was protecting Mendeecees Harris. He was protecting Yandy Smith. Or worse, he was covering up for himself. Dot. By this point, the silence around Mendeecees Harris had grown unbearable. He hadn't said a word. No denial, no defense, no attempt to clear tomorrow's name or Yandy's. Just nothing. And the silence became its own weapon, not for survival, but for suspicion. Think about it. If Tamar Braxton lied, why wouldn't Mendeecees Harris call her out if Tamar was confused? Why wouldn't Mendeecees Harris defend his wife? If Tamar was wrong, why wouldn't Mendeecees Harris shut it down? Instead, he sat in silence, and that silence screamed louder than Tamar's bloody words. Meanwhile, Yandy Smith's silence strategy was cracking. The comments under her post were now battle zones. On TikTok, creators mocked her curative brand, overlaying her smiling videos with Tamar's bloody confession. On YouTube, bloggers compared her to a mafia boss, calm, polished, but always with muscle in the shadows. And the muscle in this case was cousin Kesha. The hashtag #MeChukShaw pulled up, took over Twitter. Nemes resurfaced of her reunion attack side by side with Tamar Braxton's hospital photo, Same cousin, same playbook. One tweet read, another said, Yandy doesn't need to fight. Kesha fights for her, and that's when Tamar Braxton doubled down from her hospital bed. She posted again. This time, it wasn't just words. It was receipts. A text she claimed she sent to Funky Den the night after. I'm missing for teeth. My nose is broken. I don't even remember what happened. The timestamp matched the morning after. The club. The panic in her words was undeniable, and the caption, a dagger. Friends who laugh at your pain are not friends. Men who sit silent while you bleed are not men. And women who send others to do their dirty work will one day face the truth. Boom. Tamar Braxton wasn't just hinting anymore. She was spelling it out. Yandy Smith, Mendeecees Harris, Funky Denava, and yes, Cousin Kesha. All of their names were now tied to her bloody face, her broken teeth, her fractured nose. The internet ate it up. Bloggers replayed her pose frame by frame. Fans dissected her every word, and the silence from the accused only made her louder. But let's ask the real questions. If Tamar Braxton is lying, why hasn't Yandy Smith sued? Why hasn't Mendeecees Harris defended himself? Why hasn't Funky Denva gone live with their real story? Why hasn't Cousin Kesha said a word? Because in Atlanta, silence isn't just empty. It's loaded. And right now, their silence is painting them guilty. The streets are already screaming their verdict. Tamar Braxton was vibing with Mendeecees Harris. Yandy Smith pulled up. Cousin Kesha did the damage and Funky Dina laughed while the blood dried dot. And now Tamar Braxton is no longer the victim in silence. She's a voice turning her pain into proof. By the time the third day rolled in after Tamar Braxton's hospital confession, the city of Atlanta felt like it was on fire. Every blog, every timeline, every talk show was replaying her bloody words to Mar's face, swollen and bruised. It wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a symbol of silence breaking, a symbol of revenge exposed, a symbol of how messy one night with Mendeecees Harris could turn. When Yandy Smith was in the shadows and Tamar Braxton wasn't finished, lying in her hospital bed, Eves in her arm, her face bandaged, Tamar looked straight into her phone's camera and dropped the next bomb. Her voice was tired but sharp, the kind of tone that cuts because it's honest. Everybody keeps asking me if I'm scared, she said, her eyes filling with tears but her voice steady. And the truth is I am but not scared of the truth. Scared of how far they'll go to hide it. Yandy Smith, you know what happened. Mendeecees Harris, you know you were there. And Funky Denva, you know you covered it up. The internet froze. Tamar Braxton wasn't just hinting anymore. She was naming them directly within minutes. Ours exploded. TA are names. Yandy Yex exposed. Mendeecees. Funky New Dot, and suddenly Yandy Smith's silence cracked. She didn't go live. She didn't drop a full statement, but she posted a cryptic Instagram story that sent fans into a frenzy. A black screen, white text, don't believe everything you hear. God fights my battles. That was it, just 12 words. But those 12 words lit the internet on fire. On fire translation, she guilty. One fan tweeted, she's hiding behind God when she should be telling the truth. Another wrote, Yandy Smith fights her battles with Cousin Kesha, not God. A third added with the Yao Kik Shah pulled up attached. The comments under her story were brutal. No prayers, no support, just fire emojis and demands for answers. Yandy's strategy of polished silence wasn't working anymore. Tamar Braxton's voice was too raw, too loud, too bloody. Meanwhile, Mendeecees Harris was unraveling online without even saying a word. Tamar Braxton kept repeating his name in her hospital videos, painting him as a silent coward who let her bleed. I watched him sit there. Tamar said in another clip, I watched him let it happen. Mendeecees Harris, you didn't say a word, you didn't stop it, you didn't protect me, you left me to die. Fandra played that line again and again. You left me to die. The word stuck like a knife on Twitter. One user wrote, Mendeecees Harris is worse than Yandy. At least Yandy fights for what's hers. He just watches women bleed. Another posted, Silent men are the most dangerous. Men's Harris has built his whole life on silence. Now Tamar Braxton is tearing it down. And then came the receipts. Bloggers started digging, pulling up old clips from Love and Hip Hop, piecing together every time Men's Harris let drama explode around him without stepping in. They showed footage of Samantha and Yandy's fights. They replayed scenes of Erica Mina's breakdowns. They even dug up interviews where Mendeecees Harris admitted silence was his way of survival. But this time, his silence looked like guilt. Meanwhile, Tamar Braxton wasn't holding back on Funky Denva either. She blasted him in another post, showing the text she sent him about losing for teeth. The timestamp, the proof. You knew, she said, her voice trembling. You knew what happened to me and you made jokes. You laughed while I bled. That's not friendship. That's betrayal. The internet dragged him harder than ever. His parody wanted poster. Once funny to some, now looked cruel. TikTok edits showed Tamar Braxton crying in her hospital bed alongside screenshots of Funky's jokes. The comments were brutal. You're covering up for Yandy and Mendeecees. You chose views over Tamar's life. Funky Denva. Your silence and laughter make you guilty too by now. The narrative wasn't even being written by Tamar anymore. It was being written by the fans. The internet decided Yandy Smith plotted. Cousin Kesha pulled up. Men's hair stayed silent and Funky Denala laughed, and nothing Yandy or Mendeecees did could stop it. Then came the whispers of witnesses. One anonymous source told a blogger, I saw Kasher there. I'm not saying I saw her swing, but I saw her. She was in the room. Another said, Mendeecees was at Tamar's house. Don't let him fool you. He was there. The puzzle pieces kept stacking, and each new rumor, each new whisper only made Tamar Braxton's hospital confessions look more credible. By now, the memes were endless. One showed Tamar Braxton in her hospital bed with the caption, Silence doesn't heal broken teeth. Another had Yandy Smith smiling on Instagram overlaid with the words, She doesn't clap back, she claps silently. A third showed cousin Kesha running from the reunion stage with the caption, History repeats, it's selfie. And then came the celebrities. Erica Mina posted a cryptic tweet. Funny how silence always tells the truth. Fans immediately tied it to Yandy. K. Michelle went live and said, I believe Tamar. I've been there. These women play dirty. Even 50C posted a meme about cousin Kesha with laughing emojis pushing the story beyond Atlanta and into mainstream chaos. At this point, Tamar Braxton was no longer seen as a messy R, and we sing her chasing drama. She was seen as a survivor, exposing the dirt. Her hospital bed had become her stage, her confessionals more dramatic than any episode of Love and Hip Hop. And just when the story couldn't get messier, Tamar dropped the cliffhanger of all cliffers. She ended her third hospital post with one sentence. If they don't stop lying, on me, I'll drop the videos. The internet exploded. Videos. One fan screamed on Twitter, Tamar Braxton as footage. Another shouted on Instagram. What did Mendeecees Harris let happen that she caught on camera? Blog speculated instantly. And just like that, the silence of Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris became even louder. Because of Tamar Braxton really did have footage. If she had proof, then everything would come crashing.